It's James Hands here from Awaken Therapy, coming to you from the Gold Coast hinterland early in the morning. And today I want to talk with you about the healing tree starting down in the roots. Now the root system of healing is what I call the heavy lifting stage, the heavy lifting of getting down into the raw material of our wounding. So we want to heal stuff. There's old stuff that's stuck, that's blocked, residue from the past, whatever has happened and we haven't fully processed it. And that residue sits there inside the body, in the mind, in chemical form. It's there as old emotions, it's there as old thoughts and beliefs, and it'll sit there until we deal with it. And later on, we can talk about the trunk and the branches of our healing tree, but we have to get into the roots if we're going to finish with this stuff. Sorry about the light that's coming in and out through a tree out there. Let me show you. So the problem we've got with our healing is that if we don't address the raw material, if we don't get down into the guts of the difficult, messy, painful residue of fear and guilt and rage and grief and the chemistry of that and the thoughts, the negative beliefs, everything that goes with that, well, we can bypass it, we can avoid it, we can medicate it, we can do anything to keep a lid on it. So lots of things we can do to sort of manage it, but to heal it, we have to take the lid off. We have to get down into the guts of that messiness. Now, when we do that, it's necessary really to have some support in that, at least initially, because what will happen is we venture down into our shadow material, our automatic defenses will deflect. They will stop us getting there. Our psychology, our psyche, our inner wisdom is very good at protecting us from what we're not ready to face. And particularly as a child, when we get overwhelmed very easily, there can be a lot that our denial and our projection, our distantiation, and all our defense mechanisms will keep us from facing. We dissociate, we avoid. And so what I found personally, and certainly with clients, is that if we're venturing down into the cavern, if we're venturing down into the dark to get to that material, that there'll be a certain point in our own where our defenses stop us going any further. They'll stop us going any deeper. And so to keep going through, we do need someone to sort of hold the space for us, and there's certain techniques that will help. If you're already on your journey, you've probably done a lot of shadow work already. Telling your story is a start. Deeper work might involve things like journaling or starting to do breath work or other techniques that will open this up. And of course this stuff comes up all the time indirectly. It's coming up through our symptoms, it's coming up when we get triggered. So it's really not that far beneath the surface. In fact, depending on how severe the trauma, our life can be hell dealing with flashbacks and strong memory intrusions and all these activations that are coming up constantly. So in a way it's very close, and yet when we go looking for it, when we actively go seeking it, it tends to hide away behind the furniture, and it can be hard to get to. So with any deep shadow work, I do encourage you to get help, at least initially, as getting used to that deeper, robust work. If you're already well on the path, well, you've probably noticed how something needs a certain approach for it to shift. And essentially it's love. So essentially it's an acceptance. Nothing will heal if we're trying to get rid of it. And that's a temptation, of course, because these parts of us are very difficult and very darkened. But the answer is in the embracing. And so I encourage people when we drop in, and the main thing I use for this work as a psychologist is clinical hypnotherapy. Because when we drop in our awareness and we get to the parts of us that are stuck, the inner child is a very efficient way to get to these parts. Well, of course, we don't go in with judgment and anger and rejection. We go in gently, we go in with compassion, we go in with kindness, we go in with a gentle curiosity. And that's the approach that helps us get to these parts that are stuck. And in that moment that we connect to a stuck part down in the roots of our psyche, it'll start to shift. Something that's seen and heard will start to shift. A part of us that's acknowledged and understood will start to transmute. The energy will start to transmute. So approaching the work with compassion and kindness is key. Getting some help and definitely being very gentle with yourself in that process of accessing these difficult layers. That's certainly not anything that anyone rushes into easily. That's always challenging to get there. But the key is slow and steady. Approach it with love and kindness. And don't be surprised by the intensity of the energy that's there. People are often concerned about the intensity, say, of the fantasy there. Fantasies can be very violent because if we've been treated with violence, it might be physical violence, it might be verbal violence, it might be emotional violence. If we've been attacked and abused actively, our natural wish is to give the energy back. Psychosomatics call it incomplete movement. So if we're a child and we wanted to hit back or kick or, give back that energy to someone, and of course as a child we haven't been able to do that, we've had to suppress it. Well, that energy, that movement remains incomplete in the body-mind. And so in our psychology, it'll show up as a fantasy. And often these fantasies are indulged through movies and stories, which we're often drawn to. It's like, go to a sport event, a football game or something, and there's this intensity of emotion that's getting vented in the game. And that's an indirect outlet for some of this energy. But when we're dealing with it at the source, which is how we heal it, we have to connect the energy with an awareness of what it's about. Then we get the healing, but there's a lot of charge to it. It can be overwhelming. Some people, it's very common to think that, oh my God, if I have this violent fantasy, that makes me the same as the person who attacked me. But of course, there's a big difference between our human nature of wanting to give the energy back and actually acting it out. They're miles apart. The difference between the wish to express that anger and rage and, get that energy out, and actually acting it out, they're miles apart. And so rightly we're concerned, I don't want to act this out. I don't want to act this out on a third party. Often we act it out on a completely innocent party who's triggered us. It could be a partner, it could be a child, it could be whoever. And rightfully we feel a healthy guilt if we do that. But when we're doing the inner work, the fantasy of doing that it's innocent really. It's just part of the human experience. We're here in this dense polarity, and when energy is given to us in form of attack, then naturally we want to give the energy back. And so in the raw material stage, there can be an intensity to the fantasy. There's certainly an intensity to the emotion in it. And in the physicality, it's very important that we move and get this out of our body. We don't have to necessarily do a lot of punching of pillows and things like this, but we do need movement to clear this energy. What I do with people is really clearing it in the psychology, in the mind emotional body, and that interfaces with the physical. And I always encourage people to do their breath work, their body work, their yoga, whatever it is, to finish with the energy. So don't be surprised by the intensity. Take a deep breath. There is courage required to do our shadow work, but it doesn't make us a bad person. It's just part of the human experience. And later on we'll get into the trunk and the branches and we access more of who we are beyond the human. But in that early stage we can't bypass this level of our humanity. So be compassionate with yourself. Don't be surprised of the intensity of the thoughts, the fantasies, the feelings. Keep going. It'll change your life.